What's up everyone? Lance Hedrick here, and today we're obviously getting into the French press. Now for many people, myself included, the French press was kind of a gateway into being fascinated about coffee, into wanting to learn about the intricacies of how to brew the coffee. Now it's that interaction between the person and the brewer that really makes this whole ceremony so special. It gives someone who doesn't know anything about coffee the chance to be a part of this brewing process, which is just such a romantic connection. I know that sounds silly, me saying a connection between you and a brewer is romantic, but it kind of is. And even with these new types of processes where you don't press the plunger down, a lot of people still just want to because it's part of the process. You want to push it down even if it makes a worse cup because it feels good. You know, you kind of just...
All we guaranteed is a little change. Oh, I don't want
separating those grounds from that water, you know what I mean? Feels good, doesn't it? I know.
A little more time.
Well, what I'm showing today is not really some sort of brand new innovative method. It's actually something that I've seen has been used online, but more in the shadows. It's not been streamlined very much. When I was actually preparing for the Weber Bird video, I discovered this way of brewing coffee using a filter in here. And then of course afterwards I went and looked online and people have been doing this for over a decade. Of course they have. This is such an old brewing process that people have found this way before. It's not anything new, but I wanted to kind of show you my approach using this process in the video today, which is essentially all we're doing is we're creating a French press, but we're putting a paper filter below the mesh. So if you have a small one, like 250 mils, I actually got these papers. You can buy them from like the Next Level or the Trickle-It brewers. These are also what come with the Bird from Weber Workshops. You could also just try to cut something to size if you have like a small 250 mil French press. If you have a bigger one, you can use kind of Kalita filters. Stretch it just a bit and you'll put it on the bottom of this filter and let it ride the sides. The idea is when we push through the coffee, we are going to get this in there so that it covers all the sides. Now the trick is when we're making the French press, you need to push really slowly. And it's because you're forcing all of the coffee through that paper. If you go quickly, you're likely going to rip the paper and you're going to allow the sides to bust their seal. The grounds have now settled at the bottom. We are pushing and we're filtering the liquid through this paper until we get to the very bottom. And then you can pour it out and have the cleanest, most mind-blowing French press of your life.
Just what these
really important is the grind size. So often we have been taught that we need to go really, really coarse with the French press. I'm here to tell you that's just not right. We want to go fine. And the reason is quite simple. You have a lower extraction threshold with immersion. You pour all the water in and immediately you're continuing the extraction with coffee. When you're doing percolation, you're allowing water to go through, which is at its full solvency power. Then you get to hit it with new fresh solvent goes through, new fresh solvent goes through. And every time you're pouring it, you're getting more agitation. But with immersion, you just dump it in and it's kind of sitting there. It's losing temperature, losing its solvency power. This isn't one of those, you need to push the extraction as high as possible, but you do want to have a pretty good extraction whenever you're doing this method in order to get a really enjoyable cup. Oftentimes, because you're not using a paper filter, you're getting a lot of those oils through that the paper isn't going to stop, and that can maybe give a side of flavor that you're not going to be able to get with the paper filter. You're still going to get an extremely luscious body, but it will be absolutely devoid of any type of grime or silt or anything like that. A lot of the colloids will be held back, and overall you're going to have a French press that actually has some clarity in it. So I'll go ahead and show you how to brew on both of these, and we'll taste it, and that'll be the video. So the two recipes I'm using today are both a 1:15 ratio. I found that that's the ratio I prefer when making these French presses, and it also allows me to go a little bit more finely without getting too much extraction. In the small French press, I'm using 15 grams of coffee, ground quite finely, almost to about 11 o'clock on an EK43, or around 16 clicks on a Comandante, or around a 1 on a stock Ode. 225 grams of water at about, 95 or so degrees Celsius. On the bigger one, I'm doing 50 grams of coffee to 750 grams of water at about the same temperature. So both at 1 to 15. This one I'm doing a little bit more coarsely than this baby one. I'm gonna let this one steep a little bit longer. Sit and steep. And here we go. So we're going to 225 on this one, and 750 here. We do about 5 to 10 seconds of heavy stirring. Same coffee, so I'm not worried about cross-contamination. And now we just wait. For this one, I'm waiting 3 minutes, this one 5. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the filters ready. Wet that paper, put it on top of here, makes it a little bit more malleable. Then we're gonna take the top and just easily push this in. Boom, all right? And then on this one, we're just taking the paper, making sure it fits on here, and we slowly push it in. You wanna make sure you go nice and slowly because there might be some grounds up at the top that you wanna make sure you catch. And get that in. It's gonna take about a minute or so to press. You wanna be very, very gentle and metered on this press. We're pushing all of it through that paper, so you just wanna go nice and slowly. You don't want grounds shooting up over the edges. You want it to just be as clean as possible. So I usually just take 2 thumbs so I can be nice and consistent on that push down. In an AeroPress, you're getting some of those bitters because you're pushing through some of the astringent compounds through the puck. This one, you are not doing that. Almost done. And finished. We're at full press. If you decide to do a bigger one with a filter, it is going to be a lot harder to press. This might take closer to like 1.5 minutes and will take a little bit more force, which means you really need to be careful not to push too hard. And then we're done. And as you can see, the grounds are already at the bottom because we haven't disturbed it. And then going very slowly like that, you're still not disturbing it. So not only are you having to filter through this stuff, you're just filtering out that coffee that's up in here. So you're able to get a really clean cup. Look how clean that even looks visually. Ugo, this is your cup. This is going to completely, absolutely change your French press. Now, there are other ways of doing this where you can kind of unscrew the mesh and put a paper filter in the mesh itself, screw it back on. That's too tedious for me. I just like to slap a filter on the front and kind of push through. But it is of utmost importance to know that you have to push slowly. It's a bit more tedious, but wow, in the end, is it good. And it's one of those things where, because the filter's so easy to add, the only real work is at the very end. Honestly, time doesn't super matter because the extraction's going to completely just flatline after a few minutes. Now to end, I'm gonna have a sip of my little cleaned up French press, and hope that you do the same. Try this out at home and let me know in the comments below your results. And until next time, well, I hope that you brew something tasty. And cheers.